how did the military with women in it transition then into the next big war, which was Vietnam?
When you think about Vietnam as a conflict from the standpoint of women, it followed on the history of World War I, World War II, and the Korean War, because the major portion of the women who served in Vietnam that were actively engaged in that conflict were nurses. 82% of the women who served in Vietnam were nurses. And so it was this change. There were several things that were happening during this period of time. And that was, we had the beginning of the women's movement. We had women fighting to give women an opportunity to do things that they hadn't been able to do previously. That was happening. And we had, as we think about that period of time, we had the Equal Rights Amendment. We were talking about equality for women. And probably third, and of tremendous importance, was discrimination. Women started being aware that they were discriminated against, and not only were they aware of it, they started lawsuits against being discriminated against. And what is amazing to me is I look at some of the women who did this. They weren't people in high positions or anything like that. They were mid-level or low-level. They were sergeants were suing, like the Secretary of the Navy. Two of them sued the Secretary of the Navy. There was a first lieutenant in the Air Force who sued the Secretary of Defense because women didn't get the same benefits as men did in terms of their husbands, particularly. There were many other aspects to it, but it was particularly related, in her case, particularly related. She couldn't get on-base housing. He couldn't get an ID card to go to the commissary, the base exchange, or get health care. It was as if she wasn't married. And she sued and lost the case. Got picked up by the Civil Liberties Union. And the lawyer took it forward to the Supreme Court. And that was now Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, first time before the court, and she won. And they said women were entitled to the same benefits as men. And those kind of things began to change things as to women's consideration of being in the service. And it's always been very frustrating to me as I think about particularly something like that, which was so clearly a thing of discrimination. And, I say to myself, we had all those lawyers in the service. Why weren't they doing something about this? Well, I guess you'd have to say they were doing what they're supposed to do, defending the person who was paying them. And so they weren't doing anything about it because it was wrong. It was clearly wrong. But there were other things as well that needed change, that you could be pregnant and continue serving. So there was just one thing after another, that you could have children in your household and you could continue serving. All of those things were discriminatory and had to be resolved. And they were basically resolved in the court.